For our next example, we're going to begin taking a look at random number generation, which can be really useful for simulation techniques, but also for game playing as well. Now, we'll be working with a class called random from the system namespace, and its general purpose is, of course, to produce random values. However, it is not what we would call a cryptographically secure random number generator. If in fact you were producing, for example, online casino games, you want to make sure that you're using a random number generator that is not capable of being predicted. And for purposes like that, there are other classes built into the .NET framework, such as this RNG Crypto Service Provider class, which can help you with cryptographically secure random number generation. That's beyond the scope of these live lessons videos, so we'll stick with the simpler random class that we're going to begin introducing with the random integers example, and you'll find that under the fig07_06 folder. Now, I should point out, by the way, and I should have pointed this out in the first example, the figure numbers in this lesson differ from those in our C#6 for Programmers book. So if you are using that book in conjunction with these videos, the figure numbers will be different, but the source code that I'm presenting is the same as what you'll see in these videos. So let me open up the random integers project, and we have a simple little main method here in which we are going to create and use an object of class random called random numbers. So you can see here we're creating a new random object, and that produces a random number generator. Then down here, starting at line 12, we have a for loop where we're going to iterate 20 times, and during each iteration of the loop we're going to produce a random number that represents one side of a six-sided die. Now, a six-sided die has faces with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 dots. So I'll come back to that code in a moment. Let me just go ahead and run the program here so you can see it in action, and you'll notice that all of the values being produced are in the range 1 through 6. Now I'm going to keep that window on the screen and go back and run this program again so that I can show you two output windows at once, and you'll see that when we ran it a second time, the set of values being produced is in fact different. And the reason for that is, by default, the random number generator, every time you run the program, is quote-unquote seeding itself based on the current time in the computer. And by doing that, since the time is constantly changing, we get different sequences of what are actually known as pseudo-random numbers. There's a calculation being performed by the random class underneath the hood of the next method in particular, which we'll be looking at in just a moment here, and that calculation makes it look like we're getting random numbers. Now, line 15 is the key line of the program here, where we say to our random numbers object of class random that we would like to produce the next random integer in the range starting with the value 1 up to but not including the value 7. So when we're dealing with a six-sided die, we want values from 1 through 6, and this kind of open-ended range here is a common way to say a starting point and an ending point in a range. So this is really going to produce 1 through 6, even though the value 7 is used as the second argument, because it's up to, not including, the second argument's value. Now if I hover over next, you'll see that it returns an integer. So it's always going to give me a random integer, but there are other methods in the random class that can produce different types of values. So that's going to give us a number from 1 through 6, and we're simply going to take that and use a little string interpolation expression here to insert the value of face into the string, followed by a couple of spaces to separate that value from the next one that gets displayed. And finally, down here at line 19, we'll output a new line to drop to the next line in the output window. So if I run this one more time, again we see 20 values being produced. Then we said to write out a new line, at which point the IDE automatically displayed here, press any key to continue, because I ran the program by typing Control F5. Of course, if I simply run the program by hitting the Start button here, that's going to run the program in debug mode. You saw the window pop up on the screen very quickly and go away, because in debug mode, as soon as the program terminates, the console window is removed from the screen.